What's up, guys? Matt Brown here for playpicks.com, thelines.com with Brett Collson. We are going to run through these early lines here for I can't even believe I'm going to say this, Brett, week 12 of the NFL. I mean, it feels like it was only yesterday you and I were talking back and forth on Slack saying, man, I can't wait for NFL season to be here. It's going to be so great. And here we are entering the home stretch of the season. I cannot believe it's already here.
Yeah, and at that point, before the season, I'd already given up on the Bills, and here we are. The Bills 7-3 and 4-point favorites here in Week 12. This is something, man. It's getting exciting.
I just cannot believe we're sitting here in Week 12. We'll have to savor these last few weeks that we do have of the regular season, where we have a ton of games going on and a ton of games to bet on. Because again, we are hitting this home stretch, and playoffs will be here before we know it, and we will be crying ourselves to sleep come February, because every February I think like, man, you know, it's been a long season. I can't wait for it to be over with. And then February comes and I feel this giant void in my heart and I don't know exactly how to fill it. So we'll certainly make the best of weeks 12 to 17 here. And of course, we'll continue with this on through the playoffs all the way to the Super Bowl here, guys. As always, on the lines, you can see up here, you just scroll across. There's an odds feed. You go odds, live odds. We have NFL live odds, however you want to go about it. And you will find yourself on this page that you see on the screen right here, where you can toggle back and forth between New Jersey and Indiana and West Virginia. You can even do the spread, money line, and total as well. For our purposes, we'll just start on New Jersey because we have a bigger array of sites to go with here. And so we'll start out with this Colts and Texans game here, Brett. It was a game that we didn't want really any part of, that Texans-Ravens game. Fortunately, we didn't get involved, though I think probably had I gotten involved, I would have been on the Ravens side here, just for the way that I think that this defense has started to get healthy for this Ravens team. We were talking about how it was a defense that could be had for the first kind of half of the season here, but you get Jimmy Smith back. You traded for Marcus Peters, which allows you to put Marlon Humphrey in the slot. Now you have three legitimate cornerbacks in this league, and you have a slot corner that very well might be the very best slot corner in all of football, because he's a guy that can play on the outside but just thrives on the inside here. So we'll talk about that Ravens team a little bit later as well. But I mean, this Colts and Texans game, very interesting as we sit here, 3.5 across the board, DraftKings, FanDuel, PointsBet, and Sugar House.
Yeah, with this game on Thursday, there are some injuries worth watching. T.Y. Hilton could be back, didn't practice Monday. Need to see if he's on the field Tuesday and especially Wednesday. It's just a very different offense when he's on the field. And then Marlon Mack, as good as he is, I guess I just don't see his absence being that much of a factor, just looking at what the Colts were able to do without him on Sunday. This offensive line creates so much space for running backs that a Jonathan Williams or a Naheem Hines will be, I think, just fine. That said, this line moved a point after the Texans were blown out on Sunday by those Ravens. Finally, might be able to get a reasonable price here on Houston after it was inflated after they went on that winning streak. So a pretty interesting game here, and the number at 3.5 is pretty enticing. As
we flip over here to DraftKings, you guys can see the total sitting at 45.5, and this one seems about right. I'm with you, Brett. I think that maybe this is an early lean to the Texans for me. I'll have to dig in a little bit further. I haven't looked deep into the games yet so far this week, but I think you're right. I think maybe that we're finally getting kind of a fair price on this Texans team, and it might actually be even just a little bit short here. I mean, look, we certainly like what the Colts have done, but with all the injuries that they had going on and whatnot, it's probably seems like a decent little bounce back spot here for the Texans at home against a Colts team that, as you mentioned, just without T.Y. Hilton on the field, they have no red zone presence, because that guy was just a touchdown scorer for this team. And I think we've seen it for this Colts team over the last several weeks.
Yeah, we have. This is a huge game for that division, by the way. And for those of us who have Colts futures, I'm going to have a lot of interest in this game. Probably not. I won't bet this game because I have so much invested on just the outcome already from what I bet on before the season. But it should be a good game to watch, though.
We get the Bucs and the Falcons here. Of course, the Falcons, I mean, surprised me. I said there's no way this team went on by and then instantly decided to figure out how to play defense. But boy, Falcons have looked really, really good over the last 2 weeks here. The Bucs continue to do that Bucs thing where they look really great in spurts and then look really terrible in others. Brett, I think Jameis Winston's probably catching a little bit of the raw end of the deal here. I mean, yeah, he makes some stupid plays. There's no doubt about it. But, I mean, you look and there are a lot of interceptions so far this year for him that weren't really his fault. I mean, there were lots of tip balls and weird bounces and things that have gone on with him. And people just keep pointing to that. This guy throws so many interceptions. And yeah, he does. He makes stupid plays, but not all of those being his fault here. This Bucs team still pretty stout against the run, really, really bad against the pass. And unfortunately, this Falcons team has a lot of good guys, has a lot of guys that catch the ball very well.
This is a tough one to cap. I feel like the Bucs, like you said, they've been very unfortunate in several spots this year, and those results are kind of baked into these lines. That said, though, they haven't been covering at all here in the middle of the season, even if you take away some of those fluky plays. So the Jameis volatility is tricky when you're trying to put a number on the Bucs, and the Falcons coming off those 2 surprising road wins. Is this team for real? I don't really know. I've had a pretty good read on the Falcons all year. I liked them last week, but I've fallen into so many Bucs traps this year that I just kind of want to wipe my hands clean with them. I don't know. I honestly don't know what to do with this team anymore. So I'm gonna look a little further into this one, but this is probably gonna end up being a stay away for me.
Yeah, 51.5 is actually pretty interesting to me. I understand it's a high total, but I mean this game just screams points to me. I mean just screams points loudly to me here. So we'll certainly look into that one. 51.5, the total there. Broncos and the Bills, as you mentioned, your Buffalo Bills heading into week 12 of the season. A 4-point favorite, still being favorites in the NFL here, Brett. It is juiced a little bit over at PointsBet, so it looks like they're Denver taking a little bit of money over there on the +4, but it is just 110 at DraftKings and FanDuel and at Sugar House. So not really doesn't really look like Broncos taking early money at those shops anyway. Man, your Bills team, I'll admit, is one kind of fun to watch, weirdly, and because you never know really what's going to happen. And I tell you, they play just enough defense to make sure that the other teams can't outscore them, and they're going to cruise into the playoffs here, man.
Yeah, they are, especially if they win this one. But some interesting line movement here with the Bills coming off that scoring outburst. This opened at 5.5 last week, and it's now at 4 as they head home off the win. And the Broncos, they punted away that victory last week. They just sat back and let Minnesota get right back into it at home. I think the market, though, has finally caught up to Denver. This is a pretty good football team and very, very good defense. And I think the books kind of reevaluated this number after they posted a total. And this is the lowest total of the season, I think, by the way. I think it's like 30. We're at 37 or 37.5 right now, which is insane. So I think they decided
37.5 over at DraftKings.
I think they decided they just couldn't lay like 6 or 6.5 with Buffalo with the total that small. So I think that's probably why we're sitting at 4 right now.
Yeah, this might end up in some sort of weird kind of teaser situation for me. Like, while I feel like the Bills win the game, do they win the game by 10 in a 37.5 point total game? I would say probably not. So this could end up being kind of a leg of a teaser for me. It moves it through the 6-7 and then on to the 10. If you wanted to get weird and do a 6.5 point teaser, you could even get it over the 10 there. Broncos probably going to find its way onto my card in some sort of teaser fashion here because, while I said I like this Bills team, and I think you would say the same, they're not really built to blow people out, and they're certainly not really built to blow people out that have a good defense like this Broncos team. So if I can get double digits with the Broncos, then that's probably feels like a fairly safe bet to me.
Absolutely. Love the tease there. Yeah.
Take a look at the Giants and the Bears. The Giants 6.5 point dogs on the road at the Bears. Of course, this was the gigantic Monday night debacle that we are looking at here with the Bears. Matt Nagy making the craziest, weirdest, stupidest decision that I've seen a coach make in a long, long time. You had 20 different chances to bench Mitchell Trubisky over the course of the season, and instead you choose to do it in a 2-score game, which was only 10 points, I might add, as when I say 2 scores. 10 points with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I mean, Brett, this was like we've ripped on Nagy. If you guys have listened to our other podcasts and stuff, like we've ripped on Nagy all season long, but boy, this decision took the cake for me.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, it's, he's made some very interesting calls all season long, and we've gone over it a lot. And this one, it just, it doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. And now you've got, what's going on in that locker room right now?
Right.
I have no idea. So this opened 7.5 last week. It's moved through the key number to 6.5. And I think it's justified. I don't know what to expect from this Bears offense anymore.
Yeah, it's a game here, total of 40.5 in this thing. This is a game I probably won't want to have anything to do with because, as you mentioned, there's just so many question marks surrounding this one. Unless things become much more clear throughout the week, to me, the one thing we'll never know is, as you mentioned, is what's going on in that locker room here. You basically pull the plug on your first-round quarterback in crunch time of a game where, in theory, you still were not technically out of it. And
right.
To go to Chase Daniel, a career decade-long backup in the NFL. What kind of message are you sending to this team? You're waving the white flag. Like, what does this do to morale? What does this do the players still want to play for this dude? Like, I don't know. Lots and lots of questions for me in this one.
Yeah, and on the other side, what kind of motivations do the Giants have, too? They're trying to give Daniel Jones all the meaningful snaps they can while he's still a rookie, but I don't know what to expect from them either. It sounds like they might get Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram back. That's obviously a plus against this Bears defense, but offensively, I'm not really sure. Or defensively, especially, I'm not really sure what to expect from the Giants either. So this is not a game I'm going to spend a lot of time on this week. I'll just put it that way.
Steelers and Bengals. Bengals at home as 6.5 point dogs, depending on where you get it. 6 here at FanDuel, 6.5 here at DraftKings, 6.5 at PointsBet. The Steelers entering this one just completely beat up. James Conner had to leave after he basically took one hit, even though he wasn't on the injury report for the Steelers. Juju Smith-Schuster gets concussed and hurts his knee on that bad hit. You saw more players on that Pittsburgh team have to leave with injury. There was just all kinds of terribleness going on in that game here. And then you saw the Bengals kind of fight a little bit, actually, against the Raiders. Now, the Raiders just had many opportunities to bury that game and put it away. They just did not take advantage of the opportunities the Bengals were giving them. But, credit to the Bengals. They did kind of pull things together whenever they needed to keep that game from getting out of hand. Brett, my first inclination for this one is to run. But I weirdly wonder if this thing were to somehow make it to 7 on the Bengals or even get on the other side of 7, because this thing is juiced at 6.5 right now at DraftKings. I don't know. The injury situation of this Steelers team and how putrid that offense is, you might could talk me into a Bengals play, and I know I've made fun of you about wanting to back the Bengals here, but this is more about how bad the Steelers team is on offense, and they just cannot generate anything whatsoever. Now you're going to tell me that Connor and Juju probably won't be out there, then tell me how this team scores,
Yeah, that's a very good point. This is another one of the stinkers of the week that we have to deal with. Can't imagine there's going to be a whole lot of handle on this game with Ryan Finley versus Mason Rudolph. And like you said, all the injuries piling up for the Steelers. I think this line makes sense given what we've seen from Cincy this year, even though they did somehow stay in that game for a while against Oakland and managed to cover. The Steelers, though, are playing for their season, and this defense is scary good, facing one of the worst pass blocking units in the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets to 7, and it sounds like you'll be one of the few people putting money on this game if it does get to 7. It seems
like it. This was, we talked about how bad the Steelers offense was anyway, and that was entering the game with 2 of their star players,
yeah.
and without having those guys in there, there's just no run game at all for the Steelers team when James Conner's not in there, and then you remove Juju, and all kinds of nuttiness here. 39 the total, as you see on your screen right here. So another incredibly low total on the week. There are a lot of them this week as we move into the meat of this season, where we kind of know who these teams are and what they're about here, and lots of low totals this week. This one, how about a big spread for a change? 10.5. The Browns favored at home over this Miami Dolphins team here. The Dolphins got what they deserved, I think. Finally, there were too many people who were a little high on the Dolphins. We were not those people. We were all over the Bills last week. Thank goodness here. Dolphins catching 10.5 points on the road has already moved to 11 over here on FanDuel, so you can actually get 11 plus money, or well, even money here on the Browns if you want to do that, and you can get 11 with the juice over here on FanDuel if you wanted to play it that way. Brett, dare I say this Browns team, if you look at this schedule, the way that this is going to play out for this Browns team, so long as they don't pull what they were pulling at the beginning of the season, this team is likely heading to the playoffs as well, after we literally had written them off for dead. But you look at this schedule and they should be favored in the majority of the games down the stretch here, and they all should be winnable games for this Browns team, which in all likelihood would put them in the playoffs. Which
is crazy to say. It's hard to say it convincingly because they lose Myles Garrett. But at the same time, like you said, the schedule lines up really well for them. They got some extra rest here, facing the Dolphins, who, for the first time in 3 weeks are coming off a loss. Just another bad matchup here for Miami. We saw this last week too, and that's why we both ended up on the Bills. Teams have a lot of success running the ball against Cleveland. And Miami dead last in run blocking, according to Pro Football Focus. They lack any talent in the backfield to break a game open, or even just have a successful play. So this should just be a Browns roll show, but you just never know with Freddie.
Yeah, I know. You just never know with Fast Freddie over there. Man. I think one of the things too that I really noticed this past week, and it did play into the way that I viewed that game last week, but it really, really showed last week, is Fitzpatrick just was much more successful when Preston Williams was on the field, and they really, really miss having him out there. And this team is not nearly the kind of sling it around, fun and gun team they were those kind of 3 weeks where we were watching them saying like, maybe this team's got a little bit of life here. Without him out there, I mean, you're turning to Allen Hurns. And look, he's a fine number 4 receiver on a team if you want to, but he's having to be kind of a primary receiver for the Miami Dolphins and stuff. And so for me, I don't look as highly on this Dolphins team as I did even a couple of weeks ago here, because Preston Williams really was him and Fitzpatrick had some sort of connection, had some sort of rapport, and they were able to move the ball down the field in chunks together. And you saw last week they were just not able to do that.
No, they were not. And Allen Hurns, oh my God, this guy's getting way too many snaps in the NFL right now. Losing Williams, it's funny because you come into the season not really knowing who Preston Williams is. I don't even remember this guy. Where did he play college? I don't remember this guy in college. So, it's funny that a player like that can have such an impact, but we're seeing it.
44 total in this one. Maybe a bit high for me. I don't know. I will dig into that one, but again, I kind of keep going back to these deals where we've kind of figured out who these teams are, their identities, and how they're able to put the ball in the end zone and move the ball down the field. And I don't know how the Dolphins are going to do a lot of that here in this one. So 44, I will certainly dig into that one. Watch our podcast later in the week because we might have a play on that thing. Panthers and the Saints here. Saints 9.5 point favorites at home at DraftKings, 8.5 point favorites at home here at FanDuel. As you can see, now it is juiced to 125, 9.5 over here at PointsBet as well as Sugar House. So, Brett, here we are. The Saints go. They roll as they should in a game. They were coming off. We felt it was a good bounce back spot for the Saints. You're looking at a team here that put up one of the weirdest performances of all time, coming off of a bye against the Falcons. And we figured that they would probably get their stuff together, and then they did this past week. The Panthers, a team I was high on. You were on the other side of that, so props to you. I think, though, I think even you would admit here, even though you were on the other side, you did not expect the Panthers to not make it into the end zone and look completely inept top to bottom on offense in that game here. So I can see why the Saints enter this thing as nearly double-digit favorites here. Maybe it even gets to double digits by the time this thing rolls around here. That Panthers box score, and I actually went and watched the All-22 yesterday to see if there was anything that I happened to have missed in that thing, and really it was just they just got beat up top to bottom by this Falcons defense. Kyle Allen looked absolutely pathetic. I don't know, man. Maybe I was looking through rose-colored glasses at this Panthers team.
Yeah, they put up a lot of yards on offense, but the turnovers killed them. This is the biggest mover of the week. If you look at the look ahead, last week was 6.5. We're now up to 9.5 after the Panthers got embarrassed at home. But the Saints also lost to this Falcons team 2 weeks ago. So I look at this as a bit of an overreaction, and there might be some line value on the Panthers, especially if this gets up to 10. For me, it's difficult to put faith in an offense that can't score with the big play, and that has been the Saints this year. They just don't throw the ball downfield, even with the home run threats. Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn, and Kamara, and against an above-average defense here, it feels like a lot of points, even as bad as the Panthers looked last week. Definitely a game I'm going to be looking at a lot this week because I think it's going to be fun to just kind of figure out what's going to happen here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. 47, as you can see on your screen right here, the total in this game seems about right to me on that one as well, but maybe we can figure out a position on the total in this 47 as we sit here early on Tuesday morning. Raiders and the Jets. Raiders coming off of a pretty meh win over the Bengals. The Jets coming over just a slaughterhouse. Thank you, Jets, because you made me have one of the best weeks of the NFL season for me. Had the Jets teased every which way but loose this past week. And of course they won outright and won big outright, but had them in just about every single way that you could possibly tease the Jets in any single teaser leg that made sense. And so it was a nice week for me here with this team. They are +3 at home against the Raiders. That +3 juiced at DraftKings, at FanDuel, even juiced over here at PointsBet, where we know that they like to go 105 on each side, Brett. So we can see here the people jumping on the Jets at the +3 early here.
You could look at this one of two ways. One, you could sell a Jets team that has now won back-to-back games against really bad football teams, or maybe the Jets are just better than what they showed early in the season, and we're seeing what this team really looks like with a healthy Sam Darnold. Plus, like you said, the Raiders looked awful against the Bengals on Sunday. They played down to their competition, silly penalties, really an embarrassing performance at home, and now back on the road, traveling across the country. We talked about all the travel this team is doing this year. Does it eventually catch up to them, even though they did have a couple weeks at home? A lot of variables to look at with this game, and I honestly don't know if it's worth putting the time into it, given the lack of motivation here for the Jets, and I don't really know what the Raiders are still. But yeah, this isn't going to be one of my games I'm putting a lot of time into this week.
Yeah, I think this one, only if this thing moves, maybe I'll start considering it in a teaser leg. Perhaps if this thing does get to 2.5, moving that Jets as a home team up to 8.5 in this thing against a Raiders team that I don't really truly believe in top to bottom here. 46.5, the total in this seems like a lot of points to me, Brett.
It does, considering. You look at what the Raiders have done offensively this year, and that they've, for most of the year, they were top 5 offense. If you look at their efficiency, they did not show that last week. But like I said, I think they just didn't get up for that game last week. So it does look like a lot of points here. But you look at these two defenses, two very poor secondaries. I don't know. I kind of lean over. Do you think this is going to keep falling? We're seeing 45.5 juiced right now on the under.
Yeah, It certainly could. I think that there is probably less confidence in the Jets being able to do their part here, which is maybe why we're seeing some under. Right. But yeah, we'll have to dig into that one. I think that one might could end up as a play for us as well here. Lions and Redskins, and one of the more interesting kind of early looks of the week here. You can still get, as we sit currently, the Lions at 2.5 on DraftKings, but as you can see by the juice, that is not going to last very long at all. 3.5 over at FanDuel, 3.5 over at PointsBet. So you take a look at this Lions team, and Brett, and then as we're sitting here, this thing has moved all the way to 3.5 over at DraftKings. So I'll have to hit refresh on the old odds page here on the lines. But so 3.5 across the board here. Lions favored on the road at the Redskins. 42.5 is the total. Jeff Driscoll did not look all that bad. And I think one of the things that we saw that Jeff Driscoll brings to the table here is he's pretty mobile, and he was able to extend some drives, and he was able to get some yardage with his legs last week. And, look, is he Matthew Stafford? Absolutely not. And I don't think we're trying to say that, but I think what we're saying is he's not just completely inept under center.
Yeah, Jeff Driscoll has looked efficient. He's a great athlete, and he can make plays with that athleticism. You cannot say the same on the other side of the ball with one Dwayne Haskins, who just relies on his arm. So, I wrote down here in my notes that this is going to bounce around 3, and it happened literally as we were on the show. So I think we're going to see a lot of that this week. Pretty interesting game, though. The Lions coming off a loss, and I don't think people really understand or appreciate Jeff Driscoll for what he is. I like this kid, so this is a game I'll be looking at on the Lions side.
And Dwayne Haskins is a guy, I know, you and I were talking about it from a DFS perspective, which is completely different from a sports betting perspective.
Right,
he was able to put up a little bit of numbers last week, but it came in garbage time, which is perfectly fine for DFS purposes, but not necessarily always for sports betting here. This Redskins offense, they did try to work Darius Geis back in, and he had a nice little catch and, had a little bit of rushing yardage and stuff. They're just completely inept of like true playmakers, though. Like right now, I mean, McLaurin is fine and all, but I mean, he's not a guy that's going to go out there and just torch a Darius Slay for the Detroit Lions or anything like that, So I don't know. It's pretty interesting to me that I would even be considering backing a Jeff Driscoll-led Lions team on the road, but I don't know. This Redskins team, like I said, because I had so much invested in the Jets in that game, I actually watched a good bit of that game, and the Redskins are just, boy, they are right up there with the Bengals and some of these other ones as the very, very worst teams in the league.
Yeah, and the offensive line looks unmotivated. There was a really interesting interaction between Haskins and the offensive line where he's trying to get them pumped up, and they just did not have really any response to him at all, which does not look good from the outside. So really, it just, what's the motivation for the Redskins right now? I'm not really sure.
Seahawks and Eagles, probably one of the most premier games of the week as far as not only betting, but people just wanting to watch this thing as well. Seahawks head over to the Eagles. Seahawks are coming off of a bye here. 1.5 point dogs at DraftKings, 2 point dogs over here at FanDuel. That is an extra week to get Josh Gordon kind of acclimated to the offense here. Hopefully an extra week to get Tyler Lockett healthy for this Seahawks team as well. And then you look at this Eagles team that's coming off of a loss to the Patriots, in which they just could not really get anything going offensively. There was a lot of injuries here. Alshon Jeffrey missed the game for the Eagles. And with that, look, you look at this receiving core, and it's a bunch of, I can't even say, Brett, number 2s. It's like a bunch of number 3s, JJ Arcega-Whiteside and Nelson Aguilar and Mac Hollins and whatever. I mean, there is not a single receiver on that team that would be a legitimate starting receiver, as like kind of like a premier wide receiver in a two wide receiver set for any other team in the league. And I honestly believe that. I mean, Nelson Aguilar, it would have been a tough catch, but drops yet another ball, which is his MO in his NFL career here. And then, again, JJ Arcega-Whiteside and Mac Hollins and whatever just aren't dudes you can count on here. But I think there's going to be a lot of people looking at this saying, interesting that they're still favorites at home against this Seahawks squad. I don't know how many people will be backing the Seahawks straight up here, but I can see this being an uber popular teaser leg.
Oh yeah, for sure. And man, I'm definitely going to be on this game. I don't understand why. I mean, this was the look ahead on this game was 3 for the Eagles, and I didn't see enough to make this move. We're down to 1.5 at DraftKings and some of these other books right now. The Eagles had their chances last week against the Patriots, and I know you have to cap for the lack of talent they have at wide receiver. Aguilar had his opportunities, at least one in the end zone on Sunday, and he either can't make the catch or doesn't try. And
right.
That's obviously a concern. And you have to bake that into your capping. But I think this is an overreaction. I think this should just be 3. We'll see how this moves throughout the week. But, if the Eagles can get some of these guys back, Jordan Howard's another one. And I'm not a big Jordan Howard guy, but at least he's a body who can, move the pile in short yardage. I mean, that's kind of big. They don't have a guy like that. So, Yeah, I'm going to be looking at this one quite a bit.
Definitely interested to see how the line moves throughout the course of the week for this one. I mean, I think, like you said, I mean, this could move in your favor if you want the Seahawks side, should some of these injuries kind of go the Eagles' way here, and they would maybe start to draw a little bit more money here. So I feel like, Brett, as we, and I'm not always on top of exactly how the market's going to move, but I feel as if you want to back the Eagles, you probably want to do it now. And if you want to back the Seahawks, you probably hold off, because I can't imagine the number getting that much worse. And it would probably only get better considering you're likely to get at least someone back for the Eagles. And that would give somebody who wants to bet the Eagles enough confidence to go ahead and pull the trigger for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I just look at this as a great spot for Philly off a loss to the Patriots, which, I mean, really, how much can you negate what they did? I thought they played pretty well, especially on defense. Not that the Patriots offense has much of anything left, but they were in that game, and I don't think you can penalize for them for that.
Jaguars and the Titans. Oh, actually, we'll flip over here to give you the total in that game. So in case you want to take a look at it, 48 in that Eagles-Seahawks game. There probably will be points here. I mean, Eagles secondary was still able to be, again, kind of taken advantage of by that Patriots team, and they don't have anybody at wide receiver. I mean, N'Keal Harry is probably going to end up being a good receiver for them, but he's not yet. And so seeing them still get kind of carved up. Now, the Seahawks do have wide receivers, especially if Tyler Lockett's back, but there's a lot of injury news surrounding this Seahawks-Eagles game here that I'm not going to fire early on this thing. I'm going to go ahead and live in the information age, Brett, that we live in right now. And I'm going to go ahead and collect some of that data before I decide to fire on this thing, because the way that I could view this game could completely skew by a couple of different announcements here. If Lockett is not able to go, that is a huge blow for the Seahawks. If Alshon Jeffrey's able to get back out there for the Eagles, that is a huge get for the Eagles. So there's just so many different things that could be announced in this game that I will not be playing it early. I will, if I miss out on the very, very best number, so be it. But I kind of would rather have that information and feel better about my bet than just kind of speculating.
Yeah, Lockett's the big one. I don't think there are many wide receivers who are as valuable as Tyler Lockett to an offense. He is tremendous, and you lose him, and you're left with DK Metcalf, who I don't look at him as a receiver yet. He's just not. He's not there. And like Josh Gordon, this is his second game with the team, so that would be a huge difference maker for me.
Jaguars and the Titans. I will not spend very much time on this one unless you have a strong opinion, because this is not anything that I want to be a part of. Jags, 3-point dogs on the road to the Titans. This thing looks like it can make it to 3.5, as you see juiced across the board here at that 3. Nick Foles coming back for the Jaguars did not make much of a difference for this team really at all. And the Tennessee Titans coming off of a bye, but before that coming off of a very, very big win. And look, man, this Titans team has had a little bit of, I guess you could say even fire with Ryan Tannehill under center for this team. I mean, a big win against the Chiefs, but if you're going to tell me I'm going to have to pay 3.5 on a Titans team, I don't know, man. It's tough for me to pull the trigger on a 3.5 Ryan Tannehill led Titans team.
I get it, but at the same time, I feel like the Jags have kind of just packed up for the season, and the Titans, like you said, are playing with some fire. I like this Titans team. I think they're undervalued right now coming off the bye. This is a spot I will definitely have some interest in later in the week. Even if it does get to 3.5, I cap this higher than that. So I'm pretty high in the Titans here early in the week. We'll see if that changes by Friday. 41 the total in this one. Again, a week of a lot of these lower totals in this, which is going to make some of these games a little bit tricky to look at here, because you start wondering like, I understand it's a short dog, but there's not very many points expected to be scored. So if this thing is low scoring, do they really cover here? So a lot of decisions to be made with these low totals in these games. Cowboys and the Patriots, the other marquee game of the week that everyone's going to be talking about. Cowboys on the road here, Brett. This number was actually fairly shocking to me. 6.5 point dogs to the Patriots on the road at DraftKings. At 6 at FanDuel, but still 6.5 over at Sugar House and over at PointsBet. So we are looking at 6.5 point dogs for the Cowboys at this Patriots team. I don't know what to say, man. I think I'm on the right side with the Patriots, and it just blows up in my face every single time. I don't know what to do with this anymore. I look at this and I'm like, this has to be too many points. But is it? Like, you tell me. You were right last week. You nailed that. I got it wrong. What are you seeing here?
Yeah, I mean, so last week played out differently for me because, as you mentioned, like a lot played into that game for the Eagles on the side of that. I didn't think the Patriots were going to have to score that many points to have to cover in that game because I didn't think the Eagles were going to be able to score very much because of that injury situation and that wide receiver core being dust outside of Alshon Jeffrey. And then you lose Jordan Howard as well. And like you said, I mean, you're not jumping up and down about Jordan Howard, but he's a cape. I think a lot of times we're so quick to, when guys aren't Christian McCaffrey or Alvin Kamara, that we like sit here and just go like, oh, that guy's terrible. But look, Jordan Howard has been a steady, productive running back in this league. And so it is not just something you just write off when Jordan Howard, who a guy that they had made a pretty good part of that offense, was sitting on the sideline. And so, I took all of that into account, and that's kind of how I got here. Now, this one is a little bit harder to figure out here because unless we're looking at a situation where, I mean, we did see Amari Cooper, Brett, like not play very many snaps for the Cowboys, dealing with that knee injury and actually whatever injury it is of the week. It's a new injury every single week with Amari Cooper. I kind of blew it off because what we had seen is Amari Cooper had been showing up on the injury report every single week, and he would just play and ball out and play awesome. And then this past week, he finally showed up on the injury report and then played limited snaps and did not look all that healthy here. Would it be much tougher for you to back a Cowboys offense that did not have Amari Cooper out there? For me, in this particular situation, it would, because we know what Belichick does at that point. He puts Gilmore on Gallup, and then it's like, okay, beat us with Randall Cobb. And if you can beat us with Randall Cobb, by all means, beat us with Randall Cobb. But,
Jason Witten.
I think this is kind of another one of those blueprint games for Belichick if, for whatever reason, Amari Cooper isn't able to play.
100% agree. If Cooper is out, or, I mean, he's going to be hurt. He's hurt. Is he injured? It looks that way. So, maybe they limited his snaps against Detroit because they felt like they needed to save him for this spot. Either way, I mean, he's going to be taken out of the game, but then at least you have Gallup on the other side making plays. So, yeah, the pass funnel is a big thing here, because if they can take away Gallup, and then you're left with who else? I mean, like you said, Cobb and Jason Witten and Blake Jarwin. Yeah. They're not going to beat the Patriots. No. And they're going to do everything they can to stop Zeke from getting loose as well. So this is a really interesting matchup. I don't know how to cap the Patriots. I suck at it. So I'm just going to kind of throw it away and maybe just sit back and enjoy this one. Yeah, these teams with multiple weapons are the ones that I really like to take against the Patriots. And the Cowboys certainly have that in theory, but we're going to have to, again, I'm an information dude a lot of times, so I'm going to be kind of soaking up beat reporters and really keeping my ear to the ground on this one and seeing what's going on with Amari Cooper. Because if he is actually, like you said, if he's actually injured, not just hurt, if he's actually injured and it's going to be one of those, well, he'll give it a go type things, that's basically them saying, yeah, he's going to play either limited snaps or he'll just be dressed and only play in the red zone or something like that, or some sort of limited snap situation. If that's the case, I just don't know if the Cowboys have what it takes to get it done here. And the problem is they're not going to give away that information because they're facing Belichick. You can't give that information away until it's the very last minute. So it's hard to know if Cooper, like, what kind of shape he's going to be in going into the game unless you're watching him in the stadium warm up. So it's a tough call. Packers and the 49ers. 49ers 3-point favorites at home, but if you want that number, as you can see here, guys, it's not going to be here for long. So if you want the 49ers, go ahead and jump on that. This thing is juiced at every single place here. So you're going to have to kind of take a look at how you want to go about playing this. But we're looking at a 49ers team here, Brett, that it kind of played out like we expected, where it was a team that was a little. Now, look, once they got down and had to go and just completely abandon the run and all, Jimmy G ended up throwing for a bunch of yards and all that. But when it was game neutral and when the situation was kind of game neutral, them moving the ball through the air without both of their playmakers, because Emmanuel Sanders was limited as well. It was just tough for this 49ers team here. Now, will they get these guys back? Apparently, Kittle is guns a-blazing to get back out on the field here, so likely to get Kittle back. It's so weird that we have to keep saying this on this, but like so many of these teams,
with with their superstar players, whether they're in or not, are so different. I mean, Pro Football Focus before that game last week, Brett, said that George Kittle was the most important player to his team, non-quarterback, essentially. So the most important non-quarterback player to his team is George Kittle here. So I don't think we're really understating here whenever we say how I would look at this game could completely change whether or not George Kittle is playing for the 49ers.
I believe it. And it's not just the pass game, it's the run game. He does so many things for that offense. He's one of the best players in the NFL. So if he's out again, that matters. And if he plays again, that matters. So, I mean, that's another one. You kind of have to see what happens with the practice reports this week. And if you're feeling good about him playing and at a high level, which the guy wants to be out there. If he's on the field, he's going to be doing everything he can. But, does he have a high injury risk? If he is out there, those are things you have to factor in. I mean, he's going to play. He's going to try to play, but is he going to be 100%? Nowhere near it, probably. So this is a tough one because of the Kittle situation. And I mean, I feel like this is probably a good spot to buy low on the 49ers, especially if Kittle does play. But Packers off a bye. There are a lot of things working in both teams' favor here. And
we're sitting here, and guys, as we were talking here, this thing has moved to 4.
Wow.
Man, that can't be right. Hold on. There we go. Okay. I was gonna say I just refreshed DraftKings for whatever they had a palp there, Brett. There was a palp on the screen. I hit refresh and it's no longer there, but it was at 4 for a second. You could have gotten in on. I guess in theory, I don't know what would have happened if you tried to get into your account. But you guys watched me refresh it on the screen right there. 46.5 on the total here is the one that kind of really stands out to me, and this really will come down to the Kittle news here. If Kittle does not play, I will be on the under in this game, Brett. This is I can see this 49ers team, if Kittle does not play, kind of wanting to slow this thing down and not give the ball back to Aaron Rodgers and not have Aaron Rodgers on the field. Shanahan is a pretty sharp coach, and he understands the more opportunity you give Aaron Rodgers, the worse it is for your team, because this guy just continues to get it done time after time after time here. So it would not surprise me if Kittle's not out there and the 49ers don't feel completely confident in their offense in this game, that this thing could slow down to a crawl here. And I would be kind of all over the under of 46.5 should that be the case.
Man, I thought we got some Kittle breaking news there mid-show. All of a sudden we got a line move from 3 to 4.
I know. Same deal.
Did not happen.
And then said it was a palp. It was, listen, everything's an algorithm, guys. So the algorithm was messed up there for just a second. All right, so here we go into this Ravens and Rams game. Ravens 3.5 point favorites on the road at the Rams. You can see Rams taking some money over here. The Rams taking some money over here on FanDuel, juiced to 125 at the plus 3.5 there. This Ravens team, Brett, has looked like world beaters. I think that they have been just absolutely amazing. But at the same time, is this an overvalue situation here? The Rams, certainly nothing to write home about, but did look a little bit better, did finally use Gurley like they used Gurley the last couple of years, which I thought was odd that they waited until week 11 to do that, but they did use Gurley like he had been used over the last couple of years. Did McVay figure something out? I don't know. This is one of the more curious games and curious numbers of the week to me.
My jaw dropped when I saw this number. I did not imagine we'd see the Ravens at this high a price point, even after that blowout win last week. But the offense has been steamrolling teams. The defense has been a completely different unit since they traded for Marcus Peters. It's pretty amazing what they've done, but this looks really inflated, given that you beat the Rams with the pass rush and getting to Goff, and the Ravens don't do that. They're near the bottom of the league in pass rush. So, man, this looks really juicy. Maybe I'll change my mind later in the week, but my initial lean, this is one of my favorite spots of the week, is on the Rams.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting here. This thing, as we were sitting here, moved to 3 over at DraftKings. Now it is juiced if you want the Ravens at 3, but numbers are moving here as we're on air, Brett. So there are people who are interested in this game, and I'm sure we will as well. And we'll dig in. This might be one of the first ones I dig into actually in case I want
one.
to try and actually get, the quote unquote best of the number here. So I'll probably start digging into this one early and often. But Ravens and Rams, certainly a premier game, and certainly a game that we will have fun being able to watch on Monday Night Football this week. Guys, as always, head over to thelines.com. You just click up here on odds, click live odds. It'll take you to this page right here that we're looking at. And as you can see, you can actually toggle between Jersey, Pennsylvania, Indiana, West Virginia. Money line and totals are showing up as well. And of course, you can click on these little banners up here to take advantage of the sign-up offers at these sports books, and something you definitely need to be doing, because this is a huge advantage that you have over the sports book that you will never get ever again. Them giving you free bets and free money and matches and all the different things like that. So, certainly some of the very best on the offer, best on the internet. Brett, I know we've got deals with DraftKings and FanDuel and MGM and PointsBet and Sugar House. I think we even have, I'm sure we have even some other books out there that people can get involved with.
A lot of them.
So head on over to the lines and be sure and take advantage of that, guys. And of course, if you're watching here on YouTube, please subscribe to the page. Please like the video. Let us know in the comments if any of these early lines here on Tuesday morning stand out to you, because there is certainly going to be some movement, and we will track all those on the podcast and programming that we do later in the week. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys back here for Thursday Night Football.